From the Aishan Broadcast Studio, it's Power Players, brought to you by DX1.
MPN's Power Player is sponsored by DX1. Connect every part of your dealership with DX1's cloud-based, all-in-one solution, offering a certified DMS, lead manager, website, marketing tools, and more. All built into one smart, seamless solution. Visit dx1app.com for more information.
Welcome to the Motorcycle and Powersports News Power Player. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, my guests are Katie Junis from Citadel 6 and Greg Pfleider from Accelerate to Compliance. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming in today. I'd like to just kind of dive right in. I mean, if we could talk a little bit about the current state of cybersecurity and information security in the powersports dealership world and what we need to pay attention to.
Certainly. Well, obviously, the nefarious actors are only getting smarter. Ransomware is up year over year. Clicks on phishing emails is up year over year. Attacks on dealerships and the peripheral relationships that they have are up year over year. So what does all this mean? Mm-hmm. It means that you've got a lot of dealerships out there that have been operating for multi-generations, that have built a very successful business, that now the paradigm is nefarious actors aren't the individuals knocking on your door with a baseball bat. They're the digital actors. They're the people that you can't see. So the threat may not feel as real, but I can assure you it is significantly more real. And the goal and the aspiration of Citadel 6 and Accelerate to Compliance is to help these dealers understand what these risks are, the processes that you need to go through to mitigate those risks, and then what you need to do as a plan of action going forward to make sure you have the proper information security program to ensure that you are protecting the customer data that you have collected via selling of your products and advertising and so forth. But the nefarious actors are getting worse. When people ask me, ransomware and clicks on phishing, what does that look like? I say it looks like a weed in a junkyard that is growing exponentially all the time. Mm-hmm. This is real. This is a storm that is here and is not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, some of the emails have gotten better. Like they used to be awful grammar and misspelled words, and now it's an email from your boss, and it looks real unless you actually look at where it came from. I mean, they've got a lot of tools at their disposal, and you're one click away from disaster.
Yeah.
Well, people ask, they say, well, where are we in information security compliance? And we're in the first inning. I mean, when you just alluded to it, Brian, you're talking about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is going to bring a whole new paradigm of what these nefarious actors are doing to try and garner information. Information's currency. Yeah. Customer information is currency. They don't care where they get it or how they get it as long as they get it.
The AI part of it is a little bit scary. I mean, because we don't even know what to do. I mean, like what they're going to be able to do, because people are already falling for it. They're falling.
Right.
People fell for it when it was a Nigerian prince and he misspelled prince, right?
Correct. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do dealerships need to do to be prepared? Like as things are changing, like how frequently do they need to think about this?
Every day.
Every day.
All the time. This is not something where you need to hire a staff. Mm-hmm. You don't need to hire a staff. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
That's what Citadel 6 and Accelerate to Compliance does for you. We can be your staff and work and coordinate with your internal champions that are building these programs to make sure that you're going in the right direction. And the analogy I always like to use is in a rowboat. We're both in the rowboat. It's us in one seat and our client in the other. Mm-hmm. And if we row too fast, we're just going to go in circles. Mm-hmm. But if they don't row at all, we're just going to go in circles. So really, this is a joint effort on behalf of both of our organizations as well as our dealer clients. It's a joint effort to work with them together. It's a journey. Mm-hmm. This is not, you go to a store, you buy an FTC safeguard solution, you download it to your computer and kind of go like this and head out and have a good time. This is something that needs to be taken very seriously as a course of business. And with the proliferation of ransomware attacks and cybersecurity incidents, it's amazing that a lot of dealers haven't picked up on that. But they will. They will very, very soon.
DX1 is the only all-in-one dealership management solution
for the motorcycle and power sports industry. The perfect combination of a DMS, website, and suite of marketing tools that encourages dealers to invest in their customers and not into separate software to run their dealership. All of the components of DX1 work seamlessly together to increase their staff's efficiency while allowing dealers to be with their customers rather than behind a computer screen duplicating data entry. OEM integrations, automated scheduling, and smart customer notifications combine with the real-time flow of data throughout the dealership to simplify tasks and improve day-to-day operations, all within one system and one login. This secure, cloud-based solution is accessible everywhere and has proven to be a crucial asset in the success of many powersports dealerships today. Contact DX1 now and see why others are switching to the only all-in-one powersports dealership management solution. DX1.
There's been an interesting analysis that was done as it related to GLBA and comparing that to the FTC safeguards rule. GLBA came out in early 2000s, and effectively what the regulatory bodies did was they provided some updates, sent a couple of warning shots across the bow, established a couple of regulatory deadlines, and then made poster children out of people. The exact same thing, and I think Katie would agree, is happening with the FTC safeguards requirements. Almost identical.
You mentioned how dealerships, a lot of them are third generation, and they're family businesses that have been around for a long time.
Yeah,
and they've spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort to create good reputations in their communities. What's the risk to a reputation of a business if they aren't protecting their customers' data?
Well, if they have just one incident, I mean, you can imagine it. You come into your dealership on a Monday, you're expecting service clients, you're expecting sales clients to come in, but you can't access any of your systems because you're dealing with a ransomware situation. Those can take, even with robust security, a ransomware situation can have you down for several days.
Oh, wow.
And that's an unexpected situation that you're in. So you're having to tell all of those people that are expecting you to be open and service them and take care of your customers that you can't. And that explanation of we're dealing with a ransomware situation, which May 12th, there's even a reporting requirement of that that the FTC is enforcing. And so it's not going to be something where you can just try to push it under the rug or keep it quiet. Your customers are going to know that there's been a situation like that at your dealership. And so all the money you've spent on advertising, all the best practices that you've had for those multi-generations to build up that reputation, that customer trust is gone.
Yeah.
If you go through one event like that and aren't prepared.
Well, I guess I should have assumed that it could take a lot of time, but I hadn't thought about that. I mean, you've got people that are coming to pick up their bike from service because they dropped it off 2 days ago, and you don't know whose bike it is, and you don't know how much to charge them. And
correct.
Same thing with a person that maybe drove from a state away to come pick up, a bike that you sold them online.
Right.
And now you can't sell them the bike. Like,
Right.
Correct.
so so they're already upset with you, and then you say, oh, by the way, I may have compromised the security of your personal data. Like,
Right.
You're going to have a lot of upset people.
Very difficult to make a sale.
Yeah.
It's also, the buyer has changed. The buyer in my and Katie's generation, your generation, I mean, we didn't go out and think about customer data when we purchased something. It was an afterthought. Now, with the buyers now in their late teens and 20s and 30s, customer data and the protection thereof is vitally important to them.
Yeah.
So if you, the dealer, don't want to begin to address this new paradigm and requirements, you're going to have a very difficult time finding people to buy product and service from your dealership because that buyer is changing. And it's changing every day. There was actually a survey that was done by Total Dealer Compliance that said 84% of consumers, today's consumers, would not purchase a product from a dealership that has been breached.
Oh, wow.
Well, if we all know that for the most part, everyone's going to be breached in one way or another. That's why the FTC put out this deadline. It's actually a point where they can start enforcing some of the rules and regs of the FTC safeguards rule on May 13th, which is next week.
Yeah.
And that's a massive regulation.
Wow. Yeah. I've heard the term willful noncompliance. If you could you explain what that means, and like what are the penalties for it, and who's on the hook?
Well, willful non-compliance is simply knowing what the requirement is and disregarding it.
Just not doing it.
Not doing it. So, if you're going to take the stance of willful non-compliance, there's a lot of things that you're putting at risk. And dealers ask all the time, what am I putting at risk? Everything. Absolutely everything. Everything at your dealership. Everything, all the time and money and expense and effort that has been put into building that brand and building what you have, all of that is at risk. All of it. And the reason is people need to understand the regulatory bodies. The FTC safeguards rule has been out since 2003. It's not like they just put this out a couple months ago and said everyone needs to start adhering to it. But now their patience is waning because of the breach occurrences, because of the loss in customer data. I mean, we just had one of the largest breaches in U.S. history last week with Change Healthcare. It's happening all the time, and it's happening even when the dealers don't know it's happening.
Wow. It definitely, like you said, it's not somebody at the door with a bat. It's something that you don't see it and you don't feel it until it's too late. So you got to get ahead of it, right?
Yeah.
A great analogy would be if you found a wallet in your dealership, you'd probably pick it up, bring it to the F&I office, bring it to your receptionist, put it into an envelope and say, please contact this individual, let them know we have their wallet. What we're talking about as it relates to the FTC safeguards rule is exactly the same thing. It's just in a digital environment. It's exactly the same thing, completely identical.
Well, I guess dealers should have been thinking about this before today. But let's say we get some viewers and they're like, oh my goodness, I need to do something about this. I want to be compliant with the FTC. I want to protect my customers' data. I don't want to get a ransomware attack and lose my good name. What do they need to do, and what does it what does it look like to be compliant?
Well, fortunately, we have some very easily implemented tools and solutions. Mm-hmm. The first thing they really need to do is just contact Accelerate to Compliance. And Accelerate to Compliance will walk them through getting their information security program started. And that starts with appointing their designated qualified individual. And then that person is who will work with Accelerate to Compliance to begin a self-assessment. Mm-hmm. And that self-assessment lets you know where you're at versus where you need to be. And that way you know where you need to put your energy. But they don't do that alone. Accelerate to Compliance helps them all the way through that process. And then we also offer through Citadel 6 the continuous monitoring, which is the technology piece that provides the security at the dealership on the workstations, servers, all your in the tech world, they call them endpoints, which is where a lot of intrusions into your network where your data is begin. And so it provides that level of oversight because through the continuous monitoring, which is required by the FTC, our Security Operations Center is able to have people watch those endpoints and watch the activity on those endpoints and can stop bad actors right there where it starts.
Well, that's interesting. This happened to me last week. I got an email from a client that sends me ads, and it was a link to a Dropbox. And I looked at it and I thought, and we had just had our training, so that probably helped. That probably helped. But I looked at it and I thought, I'm not expecting anything from her.
Right.
And so I just kind of left it sit there. And then maybe 2 hours later, somebody else had sent it to our IT department, who sent an email out to everybody, look out for these. And I thought, oh man, the training worked.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is somebody that would totally send me a link to download an ad. But because they're like, if you're not expecting it, call them and make sure. Which is, it's crazy to think that we're there, but we're there, right?
We're way past there. We're way past there. Whatever creative nefarious activities we saw yesterday are going to be 10x tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah, they just get smarter and better, and they're utilizing AI. Just like we're utilizing AI, they're utilizing AI.
Correct.
Which is why the Nigerian prince's emails are so well written these days.
Yep.
The Dropbox link from someone you would expect to get one from.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, they're getting harder.
We've had dealers. I've heard dealer stories of the CFO getting an email from what they believed was from the dealer owner. We want to buy $100 music Apple Music cards for every one of our employees. Well, this was a dealership that had like 560 employees. So it was rather expensive. And that's kind of one of the easier stories. I mean, we've heard stories of owners of dealerships going overseas or going out of town and then getting an email to their CFO asking spend $5 million or $1 million or $500,000 or wire it here because we're doing this, and they do it.
Oh my gosh!
And once it's gone,
it's gone.
It's gone. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I've heard about it, and maybe a year ago, I got an email from our CEO, and it was like but it was still broken English, and it was something crazy about like some card, but it wasn't 560. But I mean, it was clear what it was. But I could see, like, I mean, if you've got a dealer, I mean, you'd have to be crazy to just act on $5 million without talking to them. But I mean,
but when it seems real, seems authentic, and your pattern and behavior has been that way for so long, it's tough to break.
So are they watching your regular behavior, and that's how they're learning, like how to trick you? Like, are they?
Well, you don't. I mean, you just have to have an idea of how a dealership generally operates.
Oh.
And so then it's easy to get in there with a link to a Dropbox from someone who would use Dropbox with you, or wiring instructions. I mean, how many times do dealerships need to wire funds back and forth?
Right.
And it'll look like it's the bank. Maybe the email's just a little different, So with the Accelerate to Compliance's tools, part of that comes with training, but also just having everyone's awareness change. When you begin to develop your information security program and you're utilizing the training, everyone's in the dealership. It's something you have to think about every day. So you mentioned you had just done your training, so you knew this looks a little fishy, so I'm not going to click on this. I'm not going to take any action on this. Maybe the policy in the dealership needs to be, if it's financial, we're going to call first, and not the number in the email.
Oh, right.
Look up the number independently, not the one that they're telling you to call. But just some top of mind awareness that needs to happen among the employees at a dealership.
That's interesting. What does the day-to-day look like in a dealership? Or even month to month. I mean, if a dealership wants to do this the right way, what changes in the way that they're doing things day to day or weekly, or what does that look like?
It really depends upon where they are, where that dealership is. Mm-hmm. When people start with us, as Katie alluded to earlier, first of all, they're not going to sign up with us, get a username and login, and then we're going to send them out to pasture. We're going to interlock our arms, and we're going to hold hands with them until they begin to feel comfortable and they're on the path toward that compliancy. And we'll do that on an annualized basis or a monthly basis, whatever it is they desire. Every one of our clients gets their own customer advocate. So they're talking to the same person all the time. They don't have to reintroduce themselves and talk to Paul in the Philippines or somebody about where they are in the information security program. They're talking to people that actually have that pedigree and background. Accelerate to Compliance is one of the few FTC safeguard solution providers that has former regulators on staff, which is something we are very proud to say. They know the process and the pattern of what needs to be done. And really, I guess getting back to your question earlier, Brian, which I thought was very salient, is there's a lot of dealers out there that go, I know I got to do this. I know I got to do this. It's like your 16-year-old son that's got to mow the lawn. I know I got to mow the lawn. I don't know if I want to mow the lawn. This is the same thing. No one likes to deal with arduous topics. No one likes to deal with painstaking topics. Well, that's why we're here. It's no longer painstaking and arduous. If you can dial a phone number and have a conversation with us, let us do the rest for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it's like a lot more important than mowing the lawn, and it's kind of like packing your parachute, right?
Amen. Amen. A very good point.
Yes.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting out of the plane. You don't have a choice. You're going to jump out of the plane. The choice is, do you want to properly pack parachute or not? Right?
Correct.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
every day that you don't have an information security program is the time you're putting more chips on that roulette table on that one number.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question about your two companies. How'd you guys get together? What inspired you to partner up together?
Okay.
Well, really what we were looking for was technology solutions as a technology solution. But the one thing that I found in my due diligence is most technology companies don't understand the art of customer service. Mm-hmm. our dealers have to have service. Period. End of story. And as I looked at MSSP partners and cybersecurity partners, Citadel 6 was the first company that, in my mind's eye, really truly understood this. You can't walk into a dealership, throw a bunch of technological mumbo jumbo at them, and then say, oh, by the way, here's your invoice, and you turn it on here. That's not what we want to do. We want them to understand exactly what it is that we're doing and why. Certainly as it relates to compliancy and cost and efficiency and everything else. All of it is vitally important. All of it. So when I looked at a number of technology partners, Citadel 6 understood the art of customer service. It's amazing how many organizations out there you call and no one picks up the phone. You call us, we pick up the phone. So that was the main reason, because when you look at the technological solutions, there's a lot of them. And when you kind of wean through it all, there's 4 or 5 really good ones, and each has their own spin. But I need to know that the organization I was working with understood the art of service that goes along with a great product, and Citadel 6 matched that perfectly.
Presented from the Ishin Broadcast Studio at Babcock's Media.
It reminds me of what you said earlier about the rowboat. This isn't like something you just buy it and then you set it up and it does it, right?
Right.
It requires both. So I could see why, it would be helpful to have a person that when you call, that you talk to.
Right.
Because you can't just set it and forget it. It's something that the dealer has to be active in, right?
It's something that it's not something that they have to go in and they're in our portal 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
But it is something that they need to ensure that the personnel within the dealership understand what the requirements are in order to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect customer data that we've collected.
Yeah, I could see where you definitely need a partnership. How long has it been since you're not allowed to have a customer's written credit application sitting on your desk if you're not at your desk? And how frequently does that still happen?
All the time.
All the time.
And we're way beyond that. Like, that's Stone Age, and now we're in Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, we're way beyond that now. So I can see why you need someone that's going to be there to kind of nudge you along and hold your hand and make sure you're on the right path.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that path for a second, actually. So again, I'm going to go back. I'm a dealer. I've waited too long. But now I've seen the light, and I'm like, boy, I got to do something about this. I'm not jumping out of this plane without a parachute. I decide I want to do the right thing. What's the first 60 days look like?
Fantastic. Great question. Well, the first 60 days in working with us, obviously, there's a number of things that we're going to try to accomplish. And Katie alluded to this earlier. The first is that self-assessment. Mm-hmm. In other words, how ugly is your baby? How ugly is your dealership? That's really what it is. Yeah. And it's not as though we go through a bunch of complex matrices and they have to have, a PhD in order to figure out what our answers are. If you understand a stoplight pattern of red, yellow, and green, then you'll understand the information security compliance posture of your dealership within a matter of moments. So it's going through and conducting that self-assessment, which can take anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes. And then it's really an understanding of what have you done to date. If it's nothing, well, then there's a few things we're going to get started right away. First and foremost, we're going to get your employees in our training curriculum immediately. All we need is an Excel file of your employee list. Send it to us. We'll get them uploaded into our learning management system, and away they go. The next step is sitting with the customer client advocate after they've gone through that self-assessment to begin looking at policies and procedures. Now, we have a full enterprise-grade set of policies and procedures that dealers can utilize and adopt as their own, which sounds fancy, but if I'm a dealer that doesn't understand the intricacies of this, which one of these policies am I supposed to adopt? So we actually have a 30, 60, 90-day plan that we have within our solution that lays out policy adoption sequences, that lays out training sequences. We've actually bifurcated out part of our training curriculum to make sure that the training that we're providing is rather apropos for the person that's receiving it. In other words, we don't need to have a 12-module course for someone that maybe works in the detail garage. However, for someone that works in the F&I department, they probably do need more of a 12-module approach just because of their exposure to customer data. So tailoring those solutions to these dealerships, if I were a dealer owner, the last thing I'd want is my service techs in a training seminar all day. That's expensive.
Yeah.
So we've really tailored it to looking at it from the dealer's perspective, a position of empathy. I'm here, this is my business, this is my family's business. I worked very hard to build this up. hold my hand and get me where I need to go so I can get back to doing what I do best, selling and servicing Powersports products.
Yeah. Well, I could see that a lot of people would need a lot of training. I mean, I'd be curious if you walked into dealerships around the country and you asked everybody raise your hand if you could turn a Word doc into a PDF. And to understand, I mean, how many hands are going to go up?
Yeah.
Half?
Probably more.
Like, a lot of, so there is probably a lot to understand. Like, you need to know what the difference in different types of attachments are.
Right.
You need to know what to expect. I mean, there's probably is a lot of, not that it's really time consuming, but people need to be brought up to at least know what to look for, right?
Yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
they do.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's the ongoing thing, because as, every day there's new risks and you guys make them aware of what's coming, right?
Amen. And the other thing with Citadel 6 and their continuous monitoring product, there's a lot of products out there that'll shoot you a report, but it's 50 pages long. If you're working in operations in a Powersports dealership, are you really interested in reading a 50-page managed detection response report? Probably not. So we've simplified that process. So you don't need to have a PhD. You can look at it, read it, understand it, and know where you are and get back to doing what you're supposed to be doing.
So you just kind of show them the fires. So
we can show them the fires.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we're monitoring their dealership 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So if I had a dealership that was multi-generational, when I sit at home on Christmas Eve or on Thanksgiving with my family, it's kind of nice to know that the Security Operations Center provided by Accelerate to Compliance Citadel 6 is actually watching my dealership as I sit here and celebrate with my family.
Let's talk about everybody's favorite thing. Let's talk about deadlines. Everybody loves deadlines, right? Let's talk about some of the significant dates that have recently passed and that are coming, as far as compliance. Like FTC dates and important dates that dealers need to know.
Well, I alluded to one earlier. Is May 13th, and what ostensibly that says is originally in the FTC safeguards rule, it said if you lose a substantial amount of customer data, it's a reportable event to the regulatory bodies. Well, that's changed. October 23rd of last year, the regulatory bodies came out with an announcement that said to provide specificity, what is a substantial amount of data? Now, what a lot of people don't understand is this was unbelievably important, because if the regulatory bodies came back and said, if you lose 10,000 records or more, or 30,000 records or more, well, they're probably focusing on some of the bigger dealers. They came back and said 500 customer records or more. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
It means any dealer of any size is on their radar.
Wow.
If a breach is to occur.
That's like a backpack of paper out of a room this size of files.
If you have 50 employees, you've already got 500 records.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're already there.
Oh, so it's not just individuals. It's like records. So one individual could have 10 or 12 records.
You're exactly right.
Oh my. Wow. So that doesn't require much at all.
It includes everybody. And I keep trying to tell dealers how important that announcement was. Because if they said 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 customer records, well, if I have a Powersports store and I'm selling, 10 units a month, maybe I'm not on that radar. But you probably are.
Yeah.
Now with the fact that it's 500 customer records or more, you are on that radar. Matter of fact, you're on the front page.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you would be an easier target, because you may not have the
Exactly.
You may not have thought you were at risk, and you may not have thought you were a great target for the bad guys, but now you're totally the target.
Yeah.
If you found $5 on the sidewalk and you picked it up, do you really care who lost that $5?
No, not really.
No. The nefarious actors are the same way. They don't care if it's a big dealer or a small dealer. If they can extrapolate information, that's currency. I won.
Yeah. Well, it's probably easier for them to do it. So the time it might take to get the big one might take 6 months or a year, whereas maybe they could get two of the smaller ones every week, and
correct.
They add up.
Correct. You're exactly right. Brian, you're exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a low-hanging fruit.
Exactly. A lot of these attacks are not targeted anyway. They just they run scripts and they find where they can get in easily. And where you don't have the defenses, some of the smaller dealerships don't have those resources. and they're not putting the attention towards it where they need to. So that makes it easier. But that also means that they don't have the things that could get them back up and running as quick as they need to if they were to be in one of these situations, if they were to have an incident. So the good thing about Accelerate to Compliance in Citadel 6 is that the programs scale to the size of the dealership. So it's so affordable and easily implemented. You don't have to have a big IT department. We know the people at the dealership that are doing the compliance. It's not their job. So what my job is to translate highly technical information and tools into the practical. And that's what we do. That's this level of service that we try to provide between both of our companies is to make that job easier for the person at the dealership with tools that they can trust.
Now, this is a hard question. I mean, asking people to predict the future is always hard.
Oh boy!
So get out your crystal ball, get out your genie hat, no one would have believed what we have today. If you would have told somebody 10 years ago the threats that we face today were going to happen, they'd have said that's sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what's next? I mean, where's it coming from next? What do we got to be worried about in the next 5 or 10 years, or even 2 years?
From a regulatory perspective, you're going to start to see more regulatory bodies get involved. We're already seeing it. Federal Communications Commission is now getting involved as far as the amount of information that's collected in a vehicle about the individual that owns it. The OEMs are selling that information. They're moving that information. Well, the FCC is having a problem with it. So now you've got one regulatory body over here with some concerns on customer privacy and data. You've got the FTC over here in regards to safeguarding customer data. So you've got these two massive regulatory bodies that are growing in concern as it relates to customer data. That, in my mind's eye, is a perfect storm.
That makes sense. Like if you, the laws, it's been a few years since even rental car companies and dealers, like all that cell phone data was supposed to not be there. And,
right.
And I rent a car at least twice a month. And I'll bet you only 3 times this year have I got on and not seen 9 cell phones on that car. And that, so even the largest rental car companies aren't doing it. So I mean, you're right. I mean, the government, there's a big windfall. I mean, they're just, as soon as they're ready to start enforcing those rules, there's going to be a lot of money to be collected.
There's a tremendous amount of money to be collected.
Wow.
So I think the future, I don't want to be the Grim Reaper, but I think from a regulatory perspective as it relates to information security compliance, it's inning 1. We're at the very, very beginning of this. As I said before, you had the FTC and some smaller regulatory bodies that were kind of floating around these ideas, but now they're not only enacting them, they're policing them. And they're doing it on a growing scale. Not on just the local level, but the national level as well. And it's happening very quickly.
Wow. Well, I have another question that's a hard one. So I'm going to put my dealer hat back on. I'm a dealer, and I thought I was doing the right thing. I signed a contract, and I got a sticker on my window with a thumbs up that says I'm FTC compliant. But now this interview's got me a little scared. So what would be a process if I thought I was secure, but I'm not sure I'm secure, maybe I want to try something different? Like, what does a process like that look like? How can I know?
Well, you've got 2 questions there.
Yeah, so, like 4 maybe.
What we saw, obviously, when the regulation came out, people were looking for a solution. They wanted a one-stop shop, something I can plug in and forget about it. And unfortunately, that solution doesn't exist. There are certain regulatory requirements that do require members of the dealership to get involved and get their hands somewhat dirty. So what we have seen is some dealers have gone out, they bought a solution, they thought it was a one-stop shop, they flipped on the switch and kind of went about their business. The problem is that in many circumstances, what they purchased, they aren't actually using.
No.
We have a number of clients that have come to us from a competitor that was utilizing their continuous monitoring solution. The only problem was it required the dealer to do the monitoring. The dealer didn't know that.
Oh.
Well, how can you run a dealership and monitor your systems at the same time? That's a difficult proposition.
You got to hire somebody, right?
You got to hire someone to do that. So the dealers themselves, I think now have taken a step back and taking a deep breath and realizing, okay, This is part of the course of doing business, but I need to engage someone and I need to get started. The bottom line is don't be discouraged about where you are or where you're not. It doesn't matter. If you haven't made a phone call yet, you're falling behind exponentially every single day. As I said, this is inning one. Now, if you, the dealer, want to play roulette with your dealership for the next 7 or 8 innings, that's certainly your prerogative, but just think of the amount of work and the learning that you're going to have to do to be able to acquire and learn the information of all those regs for 7 or 8 innings, which could be 4 months from now, it could be 5 years from now. But there's more coming, and we're already seeing it from other regulatory bodies.
Wow. I mean, yeah. If I was a business owner or a consumer, I mean, it's unfortunate these bad guys are out there, but I think it's in everybody's best interest to do what we can to combat them. I mean, I would be, if I hadn't been trained on it, I would have clicked on those things. You know, like if I hadn't done, I would have been the reason why today when you came in for this interview, none of that stuff would have worked, right? That would have been my fault. and so all the goodwill that we've created, you know, you would have been like, that Brian guy, gosh darn it, he clicked on that email. We flew out here for nothing.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I really appreciate you guys coming out today. Is there anything more you'd like to share with the audience?
Get started. Start building your information security program right away. This is not a game anymore. It is not a game anymore. When you look at dealerships, large and small, I mean, they're the lifeblood of the economic community, of small and large towns both. They're a phenomenal employer. Everybody knows who the car dealer is in town. The problem is that there's bad actors that don't care. And they don't care about your size, and they don't care what you sell, and they don't care where you're located. If you have customer data, you're a target. And like I said before, if you found $5 on the sidewalk, do we ever really care about where it came from? Who it came from? No. Same thing with the nefarious actors. It's exactly the same paradigm here.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
But don't wait. Don't wait. The longer you wait, the more painstaking this will become. I think Katie would agree with that.
I do agree with that. And we're here to help. So it doesn't have to be complicated or cumbersome. We're here to help.
Great. Well, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to join us for this Motorcycle and Power Sports News Power Player. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today my guests have been Katie Junis from Citadel 6 and Greg Pfleider from Accelerate to Compliance. We hope to see you again on a future episode.